So this date is understood by many as the end of the dramatic Greek crisis, a crisis that during the past 8 years evaporated over 30% of Greece's GDP, severely deteriorated public services, and led to the economic migration, the brain drain of about 500,000 of the most educated and productive Greeks. So, although it's understood that the crisis is now over, however, and despite the valiant efforts of the Greek people, we must not be complacent and believe that Greece is still out of the woods. Despite its economy growing again, and while overall employment is down to 18% from 28% at the peak of the crisis, the under 25 unemployment hovers still around 45%, and 14% of Greek children still go undernourished. The number of those close to the poverty line has increased by 7% compared to the pre-crisis level. Capital controls are still in place, and Greece is unable to borrow on a regular basis from international markets. In an interview this past December, a senior statesman and former Prime Minister, Kostas Simitis, forecasted that soon Greece will again have to seek help from the European Stability Mechanism, and will have to do so soon. Under this light, today's documentary, I believe, acquires a new sense of immediacy and urgency. So with these introductory remarks, let me turn to our panelists, and first to Panos Yiannitsos, the director of Freedom Besieged, and ask you a very plain or perhaps innocent, deceptively innocent question. Why did you make this film? Why did you choose to make this film? And why did you choose to highlight specific angles?
Sure. Before I go to answer that question, can we please confiscate John's microphone? Because we just heard him yell for about 45 minutes there, and I don't know what's going to happen if we amplify him.
Just before you answer your question, he stole my thunder. I was about to put him down. I was going to address you, and I will address you not because of what he said. I had already thought of doing so.
We all appreciate that, John. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody in this audience for coming out tonight. When we first announced the screening, I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be great if we had 250, 300 people, come out and support this innocent little film. And the fact that we sold out the venue is a testament to the strength of the diaspora and the potential of the diaspora, not only in Toronto, but across Canada and the United States. So I just want to thank you personally. So on the topic of why I embarked on this journey, well, some people know this, but most don't, is that I was a 10-year-old kid in John Karkalatos' Kiveri basketball camp. And my family's on my mother's side, my grandfather's from the village of Kiveri. And, I was a 10-year-old, chubby kid from the Midwest of Canada who, didn't have a lot of confidence, didn't have a lot of self-respect. And, my parents went to me and go, well, let's go play basketball with the kids. There's a guy, John, we call him Pepsi John from Toronto. And he's gonna, he can, bring you under his wing. I was learning the language at the time, and John knew English and all that stuff. And so I figured it was a good idea. And I showed up, and I saw this guy just freaking yelling on the court. And I go, Mom, where are you taking me? This guy's gonna rip my head off. But what I soon realized is that, John, he amplifies a lot of things in his life, and the most important thing is that he amplifies how much he cares, loves, and respects for every single kid who walks onto his court. And whether it's, the top player or the chubby kid from Canada who doesn't have much respect, he taught me that I needed to have self-respect for myself and some self-discipline, and to recognize that it's worth it to invest in yourself. And, you know, that's what inspired me all these years later to go back and make a story about John. And, you know, I went to go research with John in 2016 or 15, and then I went to Athens with a bunch of my friends, all 20-year-olds. And we're talking, and everybody's, you know, I kind of say, look guys, I'm gonna go back home, I wanna go to film school, all this type of stuff. And, you know, I asked them, you know, what's your 2-year plan? Where do you see yourself in a couple of years? And my one buddy, who is now a microbiologist and has a couple master's degrees, he goes to me, well, Panayoti, you know, respectfully, we don't really think about that, you know, and he kind of laughed at me like it was a joke to think about 2 years from now, as if it was a joke to pursue his ceiling or his dreams. It was a futile action. And it startled me that these guys were laughing at me like I was a lunatic. Whereas in Canada, you are born and raised to achieve your fullest potential. That's what your parents tell you to do. Is in any sport, in any academic, in anything, you are supposed to reach your ceiling because your parents sacrificed a lot before you, and trust me, I'm reminded of that. Your grandparents immigrated to Greece in the late 1950s with nothing, with barely $5 in their pocket, and so you need, out of respect for them, to achieve your greatest potential. In Greece, that isn't the reality. I mean, I had one guy go to me when he saw the trailer, and he goes, that's all fine and dandy, Panayoti, but those are exceptions to the rule. It isn't the Greek reality. And my response to him was, why not? Why isn't John Karkalatos, the eco-village, Konstantinou Papachristou, why aren't we making them the new Greek reality, as opposed to putting them in the corner and relegating them to being exceptions to the rule? And this film... And so, you know, simply put, this film's purpose and why I set out to make this film is to make John Karkalatos, the eco-village, Konstantinou Papachristou, and the thousands of young Greeks that I know who are promising in that country, the new rule, I Άλλη Ελλάδα, as we say, another Greece, and that's what this film's in pursuit of, and it's meant to start the conversation. I didn't provide any answers for how we're going to get out of the economic crisis or political unrest or instability, but I asked an important question, and it's a call to action.
Very much, Panayoti, for this. Since we're the topic of the film, if you don't mind, I'll just jump back and forth with our guests, and let me just turn to Ambassador Peck. And I just wanted to ask you, why did you believe in this documentary?
Well, first of all, thank you again for being here this evening, and thank you to the Hellenic Initiative for making it possible. I was sitting on an airplane coming back from a trip to Greece, and I saw on my iPhone a GoFundMe campaign for the making of this film. And this was an independently produced film, and it was made with huge effort from Panayoti and his incredible team on a shoestring budget. And I think we'd all agree that the quality of the film really transcends the amount that was spent on a film, which would ordinarily cost a lot of money. But when I looked at the pitch about the film, and it talked about a new narrative for Greece that comes across in the film, I think quite clearly by Peter Economidis and others, I was coming back after 4 years in Greece, from 2011 to 2015, really in the depth of the crisis. And I had been on posting in Greece in the 1990s, pre-Olympics, the heady days of hope and optimism. And then, many years later, in the depths of the economic crisis, seeing a very different Greece. And as a diplomat, by extension, we often live in a bit of a bubble. And in those times of the economic crisis in Greece, there was a lot of negativity and pessimism. And if you became hostage to that bubble, you could think that there was nothing right or positive happening in Greece. I have to declare my bias as I'm married to a Greek. I have been going to Greece since I was 6 years old, holidays and so on. So I knew there was another side to Greece, but looking at Greece within those 4 years, you could think that there really wasn't anything happening that was good. So this film, I think, spoke to me. I was saying to somebody that when I came back after these 4 years, I had PHSS, post-Hellenic stress syndrome, because the images of this crisis and this negativity just sort of numbed one down, and I thought, how are we going to ever change the channel? How are we going to look at Greece through a different lens? How are we going to bring to the table a new conversation about the Greece through the eyes of young people that will inspire hope? So I immediately clicked on the iPhone, sight unseen, and I said, I want to support this film because I think it's an important narrative to be shared both in Greece and around the world. And as Panayiotis said, it's the beginning of a conversation. This film does not solve all the problems, it does not provide all of the solutions, but for those of us like you, many in the room who know the intellectual capital, the talent that is too often exported, there is hope. And there are people making a difference every single day in their community despite the crisis. And I've seen that, whether it's in old age homes, whether it's people working in non-governmental organizations with limited means, they work miracles. And I'd like to think that by a movie through the eyes of those in this film will inspire others to change one life or try to make a difference in their individual ways. So that's how I became part of the Panayiotis bandwagon. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Peck. Let me move now to John, or as the children we saw in the documentary very movingly called you, Kyrie Yanni. So John, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you do occupy a big part of this documentary in the sense that you provide a glimpse of hope. So forgive me if this is a bit of I hope it's not an indiscreet question, but I just wanted to ask, you sit here in the audience and ask yourself, wow, how is this guy motivated to do all of these things? So I just wanted to ask you, how did the crisis affect you, and how and why did you decide to do what you did?
Thank you for the question. If it's okay, I need to stand up. It's better that way. This isn't scripted, by the way, so those of you who know
Can't
me...
hear you, Johnny.
This isn't scripted. Those of you who know me know that what I'm about to say might get me in trouble. What I have to say, because it's what's inside me. I appreciate the question, and I thank you very much. I want to say, first of all, I am what I am because of my father. Who I lost a year back. He taught me many things, and the thing he taught me most was when you saw a situation where you could be of help, don't ask for payment. Indulge. You know that you're comfortable in your own skin. Make a difference. I saw a Greece that was being torn apart. It affected me personally. It affected my family. You want to talk about money? Many, many days, I didn't have a euro to spend to buy milk for my kid. That's what Greece was becoming. I studied here. I'm a graduate of the University of Toronto, Victoria College. I'm a proud member of the Leafside community, where I was born
until the age of 23, I went and I left a beautiful country and I met a beautiful country. All of a sudden this crisis hits. And everybody's saying, despite the crisis, how are you adapting? Despite the crisis, what is going on? How are you going to cope? People, there is no crisis. It's despite the leadership of that country and of that continent that people are digging deep inside their souls to survive, to inspire, to make a difference. Because in that country, as some of you may be finding out, whether it's this country, this province, our neighbors, let's not get into politics. Despite people above your pay grade, you gotta find a way. I survived. I didn't do the easy thing. Come back. Thank God I have all of you, lots of you. I thank you for being here tonight. My friends, my family, my childhood friends of 50 years. There's 12 of them here. Raise your hands. You too. So what did I see? I saw these little pudgy, smiling faces. And to be Greek, to help you answer that question, it's simple. It's a simple answer. To be Greek is to radiate, to provide hope, to provide knowledge, to provide history, to provide guidance. So I saw these faces, great kids, just like yours, just like mine. Those smiley faces started to disappear. All of a sudden, I asked myself, these are great kids, but who's that guy? Who's that woman? Who's that leader? Who's that mayor? Who's actually hands-on and trying to inspire and guide them? And I didn't see anything. And you know what? I still don't see anything. Questions were asked to very smart and well-placed individuals. You heard their answers, if they answered. That's gotta be, it's gotta come out of your soul. You don't have to think about it. If you have it, you have it. If you have to think about it, forget it. So that's what I try to teach those kids. I said, I've got to go into that vacuum. I've got to be in your lives, and I'm going to be a father. The way my father was a father to me. Now, if that was bad, that was against what that household was teaching their kids, I didn't care. I know that 90% of your relatives that living in Greece these past 30, 40 years have heard this as you have. Then mumyasis. Translation, you're not like me. Well, for the men, for the boys. You have the girls. Become a really good kitchen manager, and then find a guy who can provide a really nice big house. That was what being a Greek woman was. Of course, with exceptions. Some of you went through that. I couldn't get that. I couldn't have that. So to answer the question and to sit down, because I can go on, but I won't. I wanted to do what Jackie Robinson once said. He didn't say this, I'm just leading up to it. I see in front of me 500 people. Each and every one of you can be a hero to the person next to you. If that's your wife, that's your partner, that's your husband, that's your relative, that's your friend, that's your student. Each and every one of you possess something inside you, because that's what being a human being is, that can inspire somebody else. It is your duty as a human being, whether you're Greek or whether you're Canadian, to sit there and say, how can I add value to my life? When I look at that mirror, how can I look at what I'm looking and say, that has more value? You know how? Jackie Robinson. What did he say? How do you measure the value of someone? You measure it simply by how you affect the lives of others. That is how you're judged. That is your value. That, in a nutshell, is what I tried to teach the kids, to shelter them from that leaderless vacuum that's been going on for many, many years, but let's not bore people, for the last 10 years, let's say. We'll talk again.
I think John not only gave us an idea of what the Greek spirit is, but it seems that you also transported some of Canadian spirit back to Greece. So it works both ways.
Very proud of being born in this country. You made me. I mean that. And because of you, you are a part of Kiveti Basket, and you are a part of the hope of the thousands of children that I've had the pleasure of trying to guide. You guided me.
Thank you, John. So you've made the trip from Canada to Greece. Let's now switch to two of our panelists who have gone the other direction. Greeks who have moved and now are part of the larger Greek family. It's all about families, different sizes, different circles, but it boils down to that. The Greek diaspora, the greater Greece, as I read somewhere, it's now being called the diaspora. So, Katerina, if I may, let me start with you. So I just wanted to ask you to wear at least two of the many hats that you wear, one of a private citizen, an expat, a member of the Greek diaspora, and another as an experienced journalist. And to ask you, how have you experienced the crisis as both as an expatriate and as a journalist, and how has this affected your own worldview, perhaps?
Thank you for the question, and I have to say I'm honored to be part of this panel here tonight and having this audience as well. So thank you for the invitation to THI Canada. My two identities are very intertwined, I would say. I mean, the private citizen part and the journalist part, in my case, in my journey to North America, have coincided and happened for one reason, and one reason only. Because when I was in KATHIMERINI, back in Athens, working 12-hour days, covering the crisis, I was international financial news editor at the time. I had just gone there from Tovima. Alex Papachelas had just taken over the newspaper, and the international crisis was happening, so he wanted to strengthen that department. Little did we know, 2 years later, it was all about the Greek crisis. And at the international desk, we had to cover how the rest of the world covered Greece. And I felt powerless doing that, because back then, Greece was the Black Sea of Europe, if not the world. It was easily vilified. It was not all fake news, obviously, But as we all know, when you have the spotlight on your face and all your dirty laundry is out for the world to see, it's not easy and it's not fun. So we had to cover that. And after 4 years almost of covering one crisis after the other, I felt like I needed a break from just covering how the rest of the world is covering us. That you need to do something to take control of your life and control of your story. So I applied for a fellowship at Columbia University. I didn't know how hard it was to get it at the time, but I did. And that's how I came to North America in 2012. It was around that time that the international press had started to change the story a little bit about Greece. From the black sheep of Europe and the world, it had become, oh, see, the austerity is taking hold in the economy, Greek people are suffering, people are committing suicides. The Golden Dawn had come out of the European elections with a scary percentage of the population in the elections. So suddenly people abroad started to worry about what's going on in Greece, and the media followed suit. And of course it helped that by then the European Union was kind of protected from the Greek crisis. They had built their defenses. So no matter what happened to Greece, it wouldn't necessarily bring down the whole of the Eurozone.
Firewall.
So that was 2012 when I first moved to America, and shortly after I went to for the summer, basically covering at the Washington Post, covering the visit of Prime Minister Samaras at the White House. And it was around that time that President Obama started noticing what was going on in Greece and actually trying to mediate between Greece and the international partners. And that also helped a little bit the media debate of how the Greek crisis was portrayed and the Greek people as a result of that. So that was that opened a new whole chapter of covering the crisis from Washington DC as a correspondent for KATHIMERINI, and later in 2015, in the middle of it all, for SKAI TV as well. It's been a wild ride, and it's exposed to me the limits of our profession as well in the media, of how we cover such issues, especially within Europe. I would find, and I would be very critical of the way of how both the Greek press, but also obviously the German press and everyone who had a stake in the game treated the Greek crisis, and how short-sighted, or at least one-sided, the debate was in its individual country. So, yes, my worldview and how it has changed. If anything, the greatest gift is actually being part of this diaspora these days. Because being born and raised in Greece, I never realized, the greater community of Hellenism in the diaspora around the world. I mean, you hear about them, they might come and you're freelance in the summer, you say, oh, the Americanaki is here, but whatever. You don't necessarily appreciate the dynamism that these communities bring to the table, and Greece being a small and poor country, you tend to despise a little bit the fact of a foreigner or a semi-foreigner coming in and telling you, oh, we do it better in America or in Canada or what have you. But the fact of the matter, if anything, the crisis is an opportunity, I feel, for the diaspora, for Hellenism as a whole, for the Greeks to see the value of the diaspora as well as of the diaspora, to see its value and its opportunity to renew itself through this opportunity of actually being useful to your homeland. And if anything, Washington DC, the center of the world, power normally, and now it's just closed for a few days. But I feel that, the capital, the know-how, the networking, the amazing opportunities that Greeks and Philhellenes actually bring to the table, and the opportunities of new technology, these days you can actually make a difference from Toronto, from Calgary, from Washington, from wherever.
Thank you very much, Katerina, for actually verbalizing this, that a lot of us actually feel that this has been also an occasion for soul searching, not just who we are, what is our identity, the multiple cultures that we have embraced and have brought us up, but also how can we be part of it, what can we do in this so that we don't feel, and that goes back to John, powerless. Little kids that are in a village, like they feel defeated, and all of a sudden they are not. Thank you for that. But let me conclude at least this round with asking Vasileios, who is also now a member of the Greek diaspora. A lot of Greek Canadians are born in Canada. Some actually are born in Greece, and they have no idea that they'll end up being part of the diaspora. Yet this is one of the, actually, there are many, and many of them are personal answers to the question, what does it mean to be Greek? But being a seed that travels far, diaspora, I think, is part of it. It's since the times of the mythical Ulysses, it's always traveling away from your native land to find yourself and find meaning in life. So Vasily, you probably didn't think that you were going to leave Greece. You grew up in Greece, but then you left and studied in Canada and Spain and are back now here and living and working. So as a member of the diaspora, what can you do to help your native land?
You know, tonight's full house is the greatest testament of what the diaspora could do. But the reality is that it's only the first step of a very long journey. Earlier we all saw around many expats. And there's this common denominator between immigrants, between all immigrants. There's this shared feeling that this deep conviction that we want to be masters of our fate. And that's why we take that plunge. That's why we leave. And the Greek diaspora in Canada has most certainly mastered its fate. It has built financial capital, intellectual capital, political capital. But it's now time to deploy it so Greece master its better fate too. To be more action focused. And since I'm here wearing the THI Canada jersey, it is my personal opinion that there are three big steps that the diaspora both definitely can and should do. The first one is, as we saw in the movie, there is a humanitarian crisis going on. There are demographics in Greece that were severely affected by the financial crisis. And until there is food at schools, roof over orphans, and children have access to healthcare, we cannot look into the future. We cannot see the bigger picture. And THI Canada, this is the reason that this was its initial mandate. Humanitarian crisis relief. It's fundraise money for projects in diatrophy, for Leaders THI Canada, and the SOS villages. But then it's also about the national vision of growth. What's the next step? And it's where all this intellectual capital and financial capital and experience comes into it. Which brings us to our second step. Invest in Greece. Invest your vacations in Greece, obviously. Invest your time on Greek causes. Invest your money in Greece. Tell people what's valuable in economy Greece is. Again, THI, its international umbrella, has supported Greek entrepreneurs in Greece, contributing its network, contributing its money, and helps them scale their businesses internationally. And then the third step is help Greece engage internationally. Each of us is an ambassador in our own way and in any way.
Some more others.
Some more than others. And the best of their kind. Each of us is an ambassador in our own way. And the truth is that, if Greece's diaspora was as active as, say for example, Israel's, we wouldn't be in much or in as prolonged a trouble as we have been. We would have a different negotiating lever when we went at different negotiation tables. Never underestimate the power of soft lobbying. Simply by speaking to our non-Greek friends, many here in the room today, about how valuable an economy Greece is, about the treasures of our history, and about our values of hard work, humility, and honor, philotimo. Explain to them what it means to be a Phil-Hellene. This has a powerful impact. And to close, it is no coincidence that Bill Clinton is on the board of THI, that Makhtar Kent, the former chairman of Coca-Cola, is on the board of THI, and Ambassador Peck is on the board of THI. Many non-Greeks, Phil-Hellenes, they believe in Greece. And, mark my words, it's, once we start doing this right, once all of us go out there and, embrace more and more Phil-Hellenes, it's much easier when you have an ally on the other side of the table, whatever our troubles our country's trying to get out of. And finally, since I'm, representing the younger demographic of THI, what our founders have called the new Leaders Chapter, it's the exact same principle of the Hellenic initiative, but for folks that are under the age of 40. As I've spoken a lot, as the movie explains, an incredible documentary by Panos, it's not only about the past and about the present, but it's about thinking about the future. And the New Leaders Chapter is exactly that. It was created both on the premise and the promise that we will continue the incredible philanthropic work of the founders and supporters, all of you, the supporters of the Hellenic Initiative, for many generations to come. And to finish as we started, this is just a first step of a very long journey that we're going through together, all mazi.
Very, very, very quickly, because we should turn the microphone to the audience, and perhaps difficult to answer in one or two sentences, just quickly go back the other way. Ambassador Peck, what does Greece mean to you?
Well, for me, it's my second Katerina. I mean, it's very much part of who I am through my connection with my wife. But I think it's a country, notwithstanding everything that it's gone through, as still very much a country of the future and of hope.
Thank you. Katerina, you can answer that if you wish, but I was thinking, with you being a journalist also, perhaps you can tell us, how can one bear witness to the crisis and perhaps the after crisis? What comes after that?
Well, hopefully not another crisis, but I mean, the international media have moved on now that Greece has exited the memorandum. Obviously, the situation has stabilized, but as the film very pointedly makes the case at the very end, the debt is still overbearing, the austerity is still there, the brain drain is continuing, and the chances of the economy recovering in a sustainable way, as we would like it to see, not as just a tourism destination, but as a country that really takes and makes the best of its number one asset, which is its people, and its culture and its history. Then for that to happen, it's going to be a struggle. And for that to happen, yes, we do need all the support of our friends from abroad, of the diaspora, foreign direct investment, know-how, like participation in boards in Greece, and how basketball coaches, anything with the positive example that actually can drive this country forward. So I'm hoping to see that happening. And it's not going to be a smooth ride, but I hope that the worst is over, as the European Union official very diplomatically said. And for me, frankly, it got me thinking from the very first moment, what is Greece to you? What does it mean to be Greek? And for me, it's really the culture and the language. And if you don't speak Greek, it's part of you. It's part of our Western heritage. So that I wish to, it's something worth saving for our children and more than for future generations.
Thank you, Katerina. John, you're empowering kids. What empowers you? What motivates you, rather? Again, I don't mean to be personal, but you can stand up.
It's good to, I mentioned before how there is no crisis. Just to help you understand what I mean. That's the thing about Greece in most cases and how Greece is perceived right now. It's like we're dead. We have no hope. It's difficult. Well, I'll tell you what, is there anybody in this room that is involved with renewable energy? Thank you. There are probably hundreds of them in the diaspora. What does Greece have? What does Greece need to get out of this crisis? A few $1 billion. I'm sure in renewable energy, which we possess an abundance of, with a little help and a little nudging and maybe getting some of our people from the diaspora in that government, maybe allowing you to vote in the country. Maybe that's a first step. Maybe that's how you can help. Because what are they pointing us, what are they painting us as being? A service-oriented country where you can come, lay on a beach, get your coffee served by the Greek youth, have a great time, thank you very much, invest $250,000 from China, get a golden visa, take over all of historic Athens, Germany, take all our airports for the next 99 years, all our roads, Italy, take all our railways. True story, by the way. So what is Greek right now? In Greece, the youth. That's the only thing they haven't taken away yet. And that's what motivates me. Because that's the only sphere of influence that I feel I can be a part of to make a difference. Because they need leadership. They don't have it. I'm not so sure here in Canada you have it. Nothing to do with specific people. We're talking in general. My father, God rest his soul, had voted for Pierre Trudeau. God rest his soul. So, it's about entering an area that can be heavenly influenced, kids, saying that there is hope, because if we keep saying doom and gloom, they're going to believe it. And they're believing it. So they stop doing this searching. They put their hands up and they say, it's done. Like I said, we're cooked. Because that's what fellow Greeks are saying. You all know that this first, second, third, and fourth, and all this money coming in, is not going to the Greek youth. It isn't going to the Greek people. curious because then I'm going to be painted, whatever, radical. Just believe me. Invest in your kids. Invest, if you want, in Greek kids. But, damn it, invest in kids. Start in your own home. Ask yourself, how much is enough? The property is thousands and thousands of square feet. Do you really need to make it 10 square feet more? What about downsizing a little bit of your life and outsourcing a little bit of your heart to your kids?
Let's come full circle with Panagiotis. Very briefly, if I can ask you, what does it mean to be an ambassador of hope?
That's an interesting question. I feel like Kyriakos Mitsotakis there. Yeah. I mean, it's humbling because you see me in this film and I'm just the one who asks the questions. And, oftentimes people will, look at me and say, well, how could you have done that? Or how could you have put him, or how could you have, put that in your movie or put that or said that? And I go, I didn't say anything. I mean, I'm just the one who's presenting the platform. So, for myself, I don't see myself as an ambassador of hope. But I kind of see myself as, kind of raking all of this fertile soil, that's under there, that hasn't been, tended to for a long time, and kind of, hoping that something sprouts from within it. I'm not the plant that's growing per se, but I see myself as a filmmaker, of someone who can tend to it and maybe, bring it to light and to let people know that it actually exists. That's not just some seed just deep down in the earth, but that it has the potential to, rise up. And that's what we do as filmmakers. And, my company, Inside Earth, why I chose the name, why the logo is somebody holding up a lantern in the darkness, is because that's what I see myself as someone who illuminates, kind of the dark caves within our societies, and lets people know that they exist, and that's what then invites people to take that leap inside. And so I'm just very humbled by everybody in this audience to come out and support this very humble film. And my hope is that a sequel is made, but it's not me making it. That's all I can say.
Thank you all, and I think the audience shares this view that you're all ambassadors in your own ways, and we thank you for the contributions that you are making and the contributions you are about to make for Greece and the diaspora. So thank you very much, and with that, let us turn to the audience. I would invite, if anyone has questions, we can entertain a number of them. So for those of you that are
You can use mine, I'm not going to use it.
Yes, so I would like you to please identify yourself and very briefly ask the question to the person that you would like to ask it to.
Hi, my name is Abramanitis. Actually, the question is more to you, Professor. Since the crisis, the world central banks injected somewhere near $14 trillion in the capital markets in order to stabilize the world economy post-2008. I'm curious as to why the European Central Bank, of which I would say close to $4.5 trillion of that injection, none of it ended up in Greece, yet the prescription in Greece is probably, certainly, it bypasses any finance or economic theory in terms of really driving any growth, so essentially very regressive. Why do you think this occurred? I know it's a loaded question. I certainly have my own views, but I'm curious as to what yours are.
Well, thank you for the question. I would say there are a number of reasons. They're both financial. Greece is a small part of the Eurozone and an even smaller part of the European Union. Its economy is 2-3% of the whole. And as Katerina mentioned, after 2012-2013, there was a firewall that successfully managed to shield exposure to the Greek problem, and that was isolated. And essentially, after that, there's been some money has been provided to Greece. It has received a number of bailouts. A big number of these has gone towards debt, restructuring, and repayment. But I would say also the issue is political. So there's economic and political reasons of why this has happened. Not to forget that these have been uncharted waters. The financial architecture of the Eurozone has been a faulty one, and the mode of crisis solving in the European Union has always been fix it as you go. And the problem is that there was little know-how about how to deal with this systemic crisis when it erupted. So the idea has been to try to apply a number of solutions. Some of them have worked, some of them have not, and to move on with whatever comes along. This has been one of the many crises of the European Union, Brexit, issues with refugees, regionalism, and of course, the cyclical crisis of capitalism every 10, 11 years, that all put together means that Greece has been to some extent marginalized. It's an issue that has somewhat been patched up, and then the process has moved on to the next crisis or to the next problem solving. So they're both both economic reasons and political reasons of the design of the Eurozone and the European Union that have resulted in this picture. So I could tell you many more things about it, but I think for now that gives you, or we can speak after the Q&A, but for now I would say that gives you a sense of, and you probably yourself suspect the answer, as you have mentioned, of why this is so. So, interestingly, however, I would just say that Greece has been the canary in the coal mine, not just for the Eurozone, not just for the European Union, but perhaps more broadly for this new era, perhaps that we see of globalization and its economic and political implications and blowback that we see both in society and politics. Next question, please.
Hello. Hi. My name doesn't matter because this is a question that anyone and everyone should be asked.
True, but if you allow me, these are the rules of the engagement, so you do have to give your name.
My name is Yanni.
First of all, it's not the club because his name isn't John, it's Yanni.
At the beginning of this question and answer session, Mr. Panos Yiannitsos, you claimed that in your documentary you did not give an answer or a solution for the political and economic crisis that Greece is currently facing. And forgive me, but I think you are wrong. I think through the demonstration of the actions of Mr. Yannis Karkalatos, of the Telemarchio, of Leo Konstantinos Thessaloniki, you did show us the answer, and it was actually quite simple. I believe that you showed us the answer is to act. Not to act in the present tense once, but to act continually, over and over again, each and every day. It is only by doing things that progress can be made. And so my question is for everyone in this room, but I'm particularly curious in your answer, and forgive me, but I cannot recall your name, the gentleman from the THI. I'm particularly interested in both of your views. As you said, this is simply a first step. People have come today to watch a documentary. You yourself, you have created a documentary. That is simply the first step. My question is, a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, what will you have done? Because it is only by doing things that we can change anything.
Dr. Vasileios, would you like to take that one? Whoever wants to jump in, this is addressed to everyone.
Is it addressed specifically to Vasily or myself?
Both of you.
Both of us? Sure, I can take the... So, what we're trying to do here is near, in the independent screenings that Inside Earth is a part of and this film is a part of, we give 50% of the proceeds to the initiatives that we highlight in the film. And so audiences who buy a ticket actually are able to give back to the individuals and the concepts and the initiatives that they've fallen in love with, you know, over the 98 minutes. And you're absolutely correct. I mean, you can make a film and you can expose an issue and you can, you know, raise awareness for individuals who are trying to make, you know, the country a better place. But it's only through the visceral act of actually going out and achieving things. And as filmmakers, we try to. It's hard for us because we go into a country like Greece and we document and we get people's opinions and then we leave. And sometimes you do feel helpless. You feel like the film isn't enough. And so we're trying to. You know, I meet so many young Greek entrepreneurs, you know, who even in the eco village, you know, I always tell them, I go, what do you guys need, man? Do you want me to come out? They go, we don't want you to come help us. We want you to give us $5,000 so we can build a mega yurt on, you know, on Mount Telethrion. You know, the film is great, but you know, we need to put, you know, we need to stack sand and create things for people to live in. And so. I think one part to answer your question for me is over my experience filming in Greece, I met a lot of people who did a lot of talking and who had a lot of ideas. I see that in the diaspora constantly as well. I see organizations spread far and oftentimes I think spread a little thin. Everybody wants to be president. Everybody wants to have their own organization, their own this. And yet nobody has resources. And so nobody can enact visceral and real change. And so we have our meetings and we have our daily this and our daily that, but we don't achieve our full potential. And so you're absolutely right. This film showcasing unification is the answer to pooling resources, to actually getting something done. I mean, you look at this film, John Karkalatos, no form of traditional assistance or support, no grants, no nothing. I don't want to, you know, put John on the spot, but there were times when he came to me and said, man, like, I'm worried about my electricity bill or the trophies for the kids. And, you know, and I see the same thing, Mount Telethrion, no grants, nothing. It's all done through grassroots. Costadino Papachristou started this think tank, grassroots. His parents supported him. But financially, it was whatever they had. They moved out of their home, moved into their parents' home, so that he could go pursue a private education. This film, the filmmakers, my camera crew, did not take a paycheck because they believed in the vision. I said, guys, it will not survive unless we all sacrifice and believe in the central vision. So from the filmmakers down to John, down to the Telethrion, down to Kostadino Papachristou, you see a bunch of people who are doing a lot with a little.
Gentleman with the green hat. Yeah, you. Get up. Stand up. Not him. You. He's talking about that gentleman.
I mean, right there is our cinematographer, Isaiah King. Could you stand up, Isaiah?
Greece. His name is Isaiah King. Not Kanelopu. Not Isaiah. It's Isaiah King. He came, he was 10 days, he did not know what the heck I was saying, but he was filming. And I'll tell you something about Isaiah and the rest of the crew. None of them were Greek. One of them was what, Ukrainian? From like way up there?
Yeah, Ukrainian. We had from the Netherlands. Yeah.
Is it possible that this picture that is supposed to initiate a gam between diaspora and be the only one from Greece? Greece. Is it σωστό to have an Isaiah King, a James Spittle, sacrificing, no paycheck? We went for souvlaki, and collectively, the five of us, seriously, I had a wink at the guy because I knew him. I said, the drinks, I'll take care of them maybe next week. So we can pay off the damn bill. We're talking about 2 seconds. The man did not know what a saganaki was. Is that true, Isaiah, or not? I introduced Isaiah King and James Spittle, who's in charge of music, original score, to Saganaki. And these guys are here trying to promote our marriage because Greece isn't 10 million. It's 30. And if we get the 30 together, it's simple. They want what we have. And you have to be proud of that, and you don't have to be ignorant. Αυτοί οι υπόλοιποι έχουν αυτό που έχουμε εμείς. Την Ελλάδα κάνουμε.
Thank you, John. I don't know about your wedding, but I think every wedding requires witnesses. And best men and best women. Hence, I think all of the crew and all of us can play part of it. Vasily, your answer to the gentleman's question.
Again, briefly, I know UFT is trying to get us all out, first and foremost, and this is as a Greek citizen, I will go back and vote this year for all 4 of our elections. But again, going back to what we were saying before, it's 3 things. Fundraise for Greece, like we're doing today. Fundraise for Greek causes, invest your time for Greek causes, like we're doing today, like Ban, Ambassador Peck, and Dimitri Douzeni did, showing leadership and making this movie for this cause to fundraise. 2, invest in Greece. Actually, invest in Greece. And when people go out and say, hey, it's risky to invest in Greece, and everything is undervalued, well, that's exactly it. You're buying a treasure at a discount, you better do it fast. And thirdly, represent Greece and recruit ambassadors, formal and informal, to represent Greece. The many Phil-Hellenes here, the many non-Greeks here, recruit them, embrace them. Oli Mazi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Question over there. I'm told that we have to expedite things. Let's take one, possibly a second one, but very quickly as we have to get moving.
I'll be quick. Very quick comment. My name's Stella. I have to say this is the first time in 49 years that I have never been more proud to be Greek. I'm not as loud as my cousin Johnny, but Johnny, I am especially even more so proud of you. Great job. Question. Panayoti, similar question to the previous gentleman, but worded a little bit differently. If everyone in this room could help you reach your goal and have this film go viral, not just within Greece, but around the world, what would be the ask?
Well, I mean,
Think big.
Yeah.
Think big. Like marketing, sponsorship funds, think big. Like everyone in this room could offer something. What would it be? How could we get
Diaspora bonds.
Yeah, I mean, somebody can place a call to Ted Sarandos, the critical content manager of Netflix, and let him know that this needs a home. Yeah, exactly. I think that, our philosophy with this film is I don't put the onus on just you or the, 500 people in this theater. We have a door-to-door grassroots policy with how we market this film. We go to each community, and I want to engage 500, 1,000, 2,000, and beyond to join in this conversation. And it really comes down to you guys showing up, because here's the fact of the matter is with filmmaking. is you go online and people see that we sold out the Isabel Bader Theatre in Toronto. And then people think, 500 other people decided they should go see this film. Well, maybe I should. I'm in Calgary, and maybe I should talk to my community to organize a screening. And so the simple fact of talking about it is as good a currency as supporting us financially, as good as courtesy as finding a sponsorship. The fact that you continue to ignite the conversation as we exist in this, in this society to which ideas move as fast as they've ever moved before. Your simple act of posting about it on Facebook, talking about it, letting people know how you felt about it is what's going to ignite them to get involved. And then the next thing you know, we start at 500 and then we're 500,000. And it's just because people joined the conversation. So that's as simple as I can make it.
Final question? Yes? Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Hey, congratulations and thanks for an amazing documentary. And I'm Yanni, and also from Regina, originally living here in Toronto. So I wanted to quickly say and put this out to everyone and to get feedback on it. Now, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have decided they want to bring 1 million more immigrants here in the next 3 years alone. So that's 1 million legal immigrants and 650,000 per year of temporary foreign workers and students, international students. So it's 1 million people here. So my question is, how many are coming percentage-wise from Greece? And I'm just concerned culturally that I think one of the fairest things to do, and now keeping in mind that for every person we bring here, we can help 12 people where they are. For every person we bring here, we can help 12 people where they are. But I feel that culturally, the best thing we can do for Canada, which also has a massive debt level, we are borrowing beyond belief and taking billions around the world that is not much probably going to Greece, and that's borrowed money we're paying interest on. So the question is, I think culturally, the best thing we should do is keep whatever Canadian Greek percentage exists in Canada now. The 1 million people who are coming in the next 3 years, I would like to see the same percentage culturally that exists in Canada now coming into Greece to bring people here to help them from Greece. I hope I've phrased that correctly, so I'm wondering how you feel about that, about people immigrating from Greece and keeping the same percentage of Greek-Canadian cultural heritage that we have now for the future and insisting on that for Italians, for Polish, for Greeks, for everyone of that percentage.
Is it okay if I take up? How will you feel? Okay. I would actually hear some of the Canadians though. So people are living in Canada.
Can I try just, I feel that in the US, both in the US and in Canada, the newcomers, the new immigrants who have come from Greece during this financial crisis, it's a struggle, as you all know from your own family experiences, always to adjust to a new place. So embracing the newcomers is always a good idea, no matter what the percentage of the ratio of keeping, within Canada can be. And I talked about the American Icon and how we treat them back home, but sometimes I feel in the much larger United States of America that this is also the case there, sometimes with the newcomer immigrants who are not totally Greek American, but more Greek than American. It's an issue, and I think that my Big Fat Greek Wedding #2 or something has tackled that over there as well. But other than that, I would definitely say that young, unemployed Greeks with degrees could greatly benefit from an environment, a work environment in a Canadian company, even for a few years, even if they can, especially for a few years actually, if they can go back to Greece and actually implement some of the things that they've learned here back home, that would be even better. That would be a win-win situation for Greece as well. So certainly yes, I would hope that someone lobbies Ottawa for that.
Peck, I don't know if you want to add something to that, as with your official capacity. Canada is a wonderful open society that embraces everyone.
This year on the Danforth for the Oki Parade, this year's Danforth OK Parade is the most important one in its history because what has happened on the Danforth, but we have to be cognizant of what is happening in our society here and what people in the UN and the EU are trying to do to us. They are trying to colonize us and take our resources.
I'm sorry, I think you had the chance to say what you said. We all show our solidarity to the victims of the Danforth, but for that one doesn't have to be Greek, one has to be Canadian. And let's speak as someone who is both Canadian. And I think we have ample demonstration here that one can be perhaps even more Greek than Greeks, not necessarily having been born in Canada like Ambassador Peck. And perhaps a few words to close off this session, Ambassador, from you.
Well, I would just say to people in this room that there are some really good tools to promote opportunities for young people. There's a Canada-Greece mobility program that is used very much in one direction and not so much in the other, which is understandable because Canadians going to Greece don't speak Greek. But I think that every year a certain number of young Greeks can come to Canada. They can have experience to work in different parts of the country. They can do mentorship programs in businesses. They can take back some of those skills. I have to say that, mobility is a reality. To coin that phrase, it's a global village, but I think we have to shift the paradigm a little bit. What I witnessed for many, many years in Greece is you have to leave Greece to be successful. The paradigm has to change, as Peter Ekonomidis said, that γίνεται στην Ελλάδα. We have to provide opportunities for young people with ideas to have access to credit, which is a problem in Greece, to inspire young people in their communities with small loans that allow them to realize some of their great ideas. I mean, just to close, I'm personally involved with 2 young farmers in the Peloponnesos. They were, so a very small grant, they were trained at the farm school in Thessaloniki to develop, the business of farming. And they have 1,000 sheep in the Peloponnesos. They've just applied successfully for funding under the EU, €500,000, but they have to find the other 500,000 to develop a fully integrated program to develop agricultural products using the traditional methods. And these are 2 young Greeks in their 20s that are going back to the land and want to live and work in Greece. So those sorts of programs, developing self-sufficiency at the grassroots level, I think are very powerful, and they have spin-offs. So I aspire to see many more of those kinds of programs supporting young Greeks in Greece.
Thank you very much.
Can I add one note? Just last little note. It'll take 5 seconds. When we talk about, and I need to mention this, is that we have a lot of donors here in this audience who gave to our GoFundMe campaign. And you showed right there that when you believed in a greater vision, you helped make it happen, and we just saw it witnessed here in 98 minutes. This is one small example, but you chose to give the $25. Someone implemented the vision, and now we've seen the product. It's not a very difficult formula. We've replicated it here. Now we need to go and duplicate it throughout other initiatives across Greece. That's all I wanted to mention.
Thank you to the audience for your patience, and now for the closing remarks.
Hello, my name is Alexander Georgiadis. I'm also co-president of THI Canada. I'd like to thank you, Professor Kotsovilis. Thank you very much. I've seen a hell of a lot of young people here tonight, and there's a lot of work for you to do. Ambassador Peck, dear Bob, thanks, because you've been the driving force behind this night and this event that was organized today. Katerina, thank you. Yanni, thank you. Please don't stand up. We don't have time. Panagiotis, you did a great, great job. I'd like to thank our sponsors from Canada and Greece. As you've seen, a lot of Greek companies, powerful companies that are sponsoring this event. Of course, to thank our volunteers, because they did help a lot in organizing this night, which I think is one of the better nights we've had, and I've seen a lot of new faces, and I'm really happy about that. what we've seen here, and I think I won't try and compete with the film or Yannis' great speech that he gave, but I think we all got the idea. One thing for sure, we'll probably go back tonight trying to think, what is Greece in one word. I don't think anybody managed to do that, but we'll certainly keep it in our mind. But the one thing that came here is that there are individuals, there are heroes out there, people with a vision, people that do and act and make a difference, whether in a smaller or larger societies or in a small community. Actually, we received a letter, a report about, that was about 3 or 4 days ago, and I think it was a remarkable thing. Father Spyridon in Yiannitsa. Marvelous job. This man there, he saw people that didn't have money to eat, and organized soup kitchens. He's feeding more than 100 people in the village and in the area, in Yiannitsa and in the areas around. He saw that people had problems trying to get their medicine. So he organized a social pharmacy. Soon the social pharmacy found volunteers, doctors, to come in and offer their services through the social pharmacy. Then he saw that there were ways where he could actually create a social grocery store where people could go and get grocery for their homes. More importantly, he saw that there were a lot of young children, probably the same children that Yannis was trying to inspire, that they were going to school but they had no money because unfortunately in Greece, the way the education system works, if you want to go to the university, school is not enough, you have to pay for the frotisterio. He created the frotisterio in Yiannitsa with 81 professors, volunteers, working for this man that had